Hey there, boys and ghouls. Welcome to this week's episode of Hollow Weekly. Nick and George here with the Revenge of How Low Can We Go?
Or you might say the resurrection of How Low Can We Go?
That's a good one. That makes sense.
You might say.
Because we are here with number 50.
This
What's
is
the weather like?
57%?
57%. Alien Resurrection.
1994's Alien Resurrection. So it's the fourth film in the Alien franchise.
Yeah.
You had not seen it before.
No, I was thinking of Aliens.
Right.
And then I started up this movie and I was like, oh, I've never seen this one.
And then I had seen it 1.5 times before watching it again for the podcast. So, and let's just set the scene here because we're 3 movies into How Low Can We Go, heading towards 0.
Yeah.
And unlike the last cycle of How Low Can We Go, it's been a pretty rough slog.
Yeah, we did the
You
Dracula.
You haven't liked both of the movies.
Hell.
Right. So now we're here at this, and I feel like if you asked the horror community between Dracula, From Hell, and this to rank them, they would put this at the bottom of those 3. And this is
No, that Dracula film was pretty hit.
our favorite movie. That Dracula film's got a lot of supporters. So, but now we're here, and this film's got no supporters in the genre that I can detect,
That's crazy.
except for possibly us. So, what do you think of Alien Resurrection?
Dude, if this movie were a pizza, it'd be extra cheese.
That's true. That's very true.
And that's how I like it.
And that's how you
That
like
shit
it.
was so... Dude, this movie was so fun.
Well, and then I mean, what people should know. So, your age of horror, the horror you grew up with was like the Jason X era of horror, right? That was like you were watching it kind of.
Well, yeah, that was like the first horror movie I bought, which was in like 6th grade or something like that.
Right.
That with Army of Darkness. And
Right.
so, yeah, and then like around that same time, a lot of the other horror film, I think it was like Valentine, and then like My Bloody Valentine, a lot of Valentine,
Right. Alien Valentine.
Freddy versus Jason,
Right.
Like kind of like they tried to make them like this is a real serious horror film, but then like they're cheesy as fuck.
Right. So you cheese was part of your formative horror experience. So
I love cheese.
You're not lactose intolerant when
No.
it comes to cheese.
We thought I was for a little bit, and then I fasted for 48 hours, and it went away.
Turned out
So
never.
that was pretty
Never
cool.
mind. So I had read something interesting that said that the reason Alien Resurrection failed, which I'm going to fight hard for this movie, so I don't.
I can't believe it failed.
I don't think. I mean, it is a failure, but was that the Alien franchise before Alien Resurrection was a horror movie, an action horror movie, and a thriller. So, and Alien Resurrection tried to be a little bit of each, and that's why it failed. That was sort of the premise of that, right?
Yeah.
So I can see how, and what I like about that is the whole series is kind of about inheritance and DNA and genetics and like what's getting passed forward and what's being remembered from the past that's being passed forward and all those things. So like, I like that this movie, if it has drawbacks, they're genetic, right?
Yeah.
Like because it's inherited from what was coming before and trying to like do honor to all those things or whatever. But the thing is, I'm a big fan of. There's a really like this is a very specific genre, right? But like I'm a fan of mainstream horror movies that are actually art films in disguise, and I feel like that's where we sort of are with this movie. Because it's really weird.
Dude, it's
it's
like,
weird tonally. It's got weird scenes. It's got weird characters. It's strange.
when I imagine like cheap feeling space horror, like I don't think this movie was probably wasn't cheap.
No, it was
But-
the biggest budget of the series.
But it like whenever I think of like space horror, that's like kind of like something like Mystery Science Theater, like something real like far fetched.
Sure.
Like this is it,
Right.
and it's like so fun to watch.
Right. And that's the thing is it's fun to watch, but it's also got classy moments and it's got intentionally funny moments because a lot of cheesy movies are unintentionally funny for this movie's kind of in control of its own humor for most of the time,
Right.
But I think the most interesting thing about it is how jagged it is because it's all kinds of things that shouldn't be being put together that are being put together. The director of Amelie
That's crazy because I've never seen that, but I know it as like the artsy French film.
Is the director of Alien Resurrection, which is just bizarre, right? And the fact that you've got Joss Whedon writing the script that he said was really funny and lighthearted, and that the director wanted to make it scary and serious, partially because he was inclined that way. He had done a movie called The City of Lost Children, which was like a real sci-fi vision kind of movie. Similar to that guy that you told me about that was you were excited about that inherited I'll never think of it now. Damn it. He had a really good sci-fi movie in his past and then got a crack at a big mainstream movie.
Oh, Josh Trank from Chronicle to Fantastic
That's
Four.
exactly what it was, right?
Yeah.
So you got all these things that shouldn't be getting put together. You got people who are being like really quippy and funny, but then you got really serious like dark, bleak moments. I don't know. It's just they made some brave changes. Like they turned Alien brown instead of green. Mm-hmm. They even, because the Alien series was so well known for like, which is weird because it's a space series, but one of the first things I always think of with Alien is water because everything is leaking and dripping and condensing and steaming in all the movies. And this one's got like a full-on Jaws scene.
Yeah.
Right? So like they were like, you want water here? Like,
we'll give you a whole soup kitchen full of water.
Flood the whole bottom
what do you think
of
of that?
The ship. Welcome to Space Titanic. So it was, there's just a lot of weirdness going on, which I appreciate. I don't know that I consider it good necessarily, but I appreciate that part of it.
I think appreciation's like the right word because there's a lot of it that's not good, but like there's a lot of it that's really fucking
well. Here, let's put our
though.
cards on the table right at the back. We don't usually do this, but I'm not going to rate it yet. But let me just let's put it like the ranking, right? Because the ranking is what took me by surprise. So if I was ranking it in the franchise, right, mm-hmm. I don't like it. I like it better than Covenant. I like it better than Alien 3, right? And I'm not the biggest Aliens fan. I know that's heresy, but like I know I'm being blasphemous here, but like I think it's sort of tied with Aliens for me. So
I think it's like Alien
and I'm a big fan of Prometheus, so I feel like it's tied with Prometheus. So that means the only movie in the series I can comfortably, without thinking about it, put ahead of it is the first one, mm-hmm. which is a weird outcome for the reputation of this movie. But
especially being a fourth film in a franchise, especially the Alien franchise, because that thing's taking a lot of twists and turns.
Right, and it's better than Alien vs. Predator. So
yeah, and Alien vs. Predator's Requiem.
Right. So that's what I mean is I feel like this is a sneaky, like upper third franchise film in a legendary franchise, which is really weird because that's not how anyone thinks of this movie, but that's how I kind of came out with it. Let me try a little impromptu game with you. I was toying with this and I'm just going to try to see how it goes. I'm just going to give you, so in football, like if you were a Cleveland Browns fan, there's just phrases. There's mm-hmm. or a Cleveland sports fan. There's the shot, and that's when Jordan made a playoff shot and buried the Cavs. Mm-hmm. There's the fumble, which is when the Browns were about to go to the Super Bowl and then fumbled the ball on the 2-yard line and failed, right? So I'm just going to throw, and you tell me what you think they are in the movie, okay? So the shot. What do you think is the shot in this movie?
Well, it could be the actual basketball shot.
That's what I'm thinking of, right? Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah,
because there's an amazing scene where Sigourney Weaver makes a backwards basketball shot, which she did for real, mm-hmm. and they had to cut away from Ron Perlman because he was so impressed he broke character, right? Like that she did it, right?
Right.
But the funny thing is everyone talks about, and even the guy I was telling you about who sort of hated this movie, who went after it, like the film critic who went after it, like hammer and tongs. He identified the basketball scene as particularly loathsome. Like he really thought it was too corny, too jokey, too like whatever. But the thing I think people miss about that is the shot is impressive, but what's really cool about the scene is how it's blocked all the way through. Because when they come in, it's cutting from a disaster breaking out on the ship to Sigourney Weaver just confidently dribbling the ball and sizing up a basket. And I like the segue of, because we all know how the Alien series is going to go. Ripley's going to wake up in a scary situation. No one's going to believe her or listen to her. And everyone's in the male force, the patriarchy is going to assume they know what they're doing. And everyone's going to die, right? Like that's kind of how it goes, right? But in this one, all of those processes are happening. Like everything's already starting to fall apart. The creatures are already planning their escape. It's going the typical alien track. And when we cut back to Ripley, instead of being in fear or trying to communicate to everyone like urgency, she's playing basketball. And I kind of like that it's different, that it broke that alien cycle, and now she's not trying to tell her. She's literally telling everyone you're all going to die, but she doesn't really care. Right. So she's just trying to save herself. And then it goes to the basketball scene, and when one of the characters in the scene goes, "Give me the ball," she dribbles it super hard, and smashes him in the balls with it, right? And then beats up the other guy with the ball. So the point is, it's the last thing that everyone's thinking of, the backward shot is corny, but I feel like the whole sequence and the framing of it is actually pretty damn interesting.
Yeah, I loved watching it. Like it felt like cheesy '90s action.
Totally.
And I'm there for
it.
Well,
and you're setting up, there's two crews. So there's the military crew and then there's the Han Solo crew, right? So you're the Millennium Falcon crew comes in and they're all like, bandits and they're all like mercenaries, and you got to establish your bona fides with these people. And the only way to do that is to sort of hustle them on a basketball court, but literally like instead of a metaphor, like it fits for the movie. It's fine. I don't think that it's super corny. Where do you rank it in the franchise real quick?
I go Alien. And then I don't know if I go Prometheus and then this, or if those two are tied.
What about Aliens?
I think Aliens has the one guy from Mad About You in it, right?
This is going to be shocking to everybody because we are not the biggest Aliens fans, and that's like a revered movie in the horror genre. But yeah, but it's the James Cameron movie, right? So it's the die bitch and the Ripley in the suit. And
this was way. I like this one. This one was fun. There's a lot of shit that I was watching. Like, what's funny is like a lot of the dialogue was really weird. It's strange considering it's Joss Whedon and he's like, he wrote it. But
totally.
Yeah, I still think if I had to place it, like Aliens I think Aliens always gonna be number one.
Yeah, I mean, Aliens number one. Aliens is probably consensus number two. I get that, but here's the thing. All right, so let me throw a couple other game phrases at you. All right, so we did this shot. Okay, so how about the reveal?
Oh, when she walks into the lab. Mm-hmm. That was a great scene. And just seeing how like all the fucked up.
And that's exactly what I was thinking of. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, no, that scene was amazing. And then her telling her to kill me, like kill me. Ugh.
And what I really liked about that was that twisted monstrosity that was begging to be put to death was the number 7. And the one we're dealing with is, so we should explain for those who haven't seen it. This isn't the real Ripley; it's a clone who has inherited Ripley's personality and a lot of her memories with some gaps. But it's basically Ripley, but not actually Ripley.
Right.
And she's also been fused genetically with the xenomorphs. So she's not only a clone, but she's also a hybrid. So she's not the Ripley that we've known. Like some of it is, I mean, they're literally teaching her like basic words when we meet her in the beginning of the movie. So she's on her own different journey this time. But what's really cool about it is, her behavior in this one is. So I saw a behind the scenes of interview with Sigourney Weaver explaining, why she took the part and like what she liked about the movie and what attracted her to the thing. She really liked Joss Whedon's script, and she had said that one of the things that Joss Whedon said in the behind the scenes that was really cool was he was like, I really respect that Sigourney Weaver kept pushing me during the process to be like, make me stranger, make me scarier, make me more unpredictable. Like she really wanted to push the boundaries of what the character was. And that's what's really weird to me is everyone kind of lauds Jamie Lee Curtis for like the Halloween 2018 performance, and good on her. Like I thought she was amazing, and she also, I forget what stat she got, but she was like the first over 50 actress to be in a horror movie that opened number 1.
Yeah.
A certain like whatever. So, and her performance is magnificent. But I think Sigourney Weaver's performance in Alien 4 is better than Jamie Lee Curtis's performance in Halloween 2018. Or at least more interesting. And the weird part is that no one talks about this movie, right?
Yeah, no. And I would agree with you on that. Like, just seeing, like, especially, like, towards the end. Like, and because you mentioned that this is the Batman Returns of the Alien franchise.
Yeah. Well, yeah, sort of. Yeah.
And I wanted to ask you about that because I think I see what scene you're talking about.
Well, it's not so much a scene. It's kind of like that manic, gothic, funny, scary tone. Mm-hmm. Like it just has that really atmospheric like side to it, but then it's got really quirky characters who all sort of have their individual powers, and it's got joint villains. So it just gives me kind of like that vibe. I mean, Batman Returns was what, 92 probably or something like that. So like, I mean, they're like neighbors in time. So
very true,
right? You can sort of see how that would be.
That's very true. But the
what scene were you thinking? I was thinking
of when the weird hybrid alien was getting sucked out of the ship.
Oh, okay.
Because like
the very end,
dude,
okay.
like I felt kind of sad for that thing.
Okay, can we talk about this for a second? So that's the other thing is I think one of the things that surprises me watching everyone like crap on this movie is it's pretty emotionally affecting.
The eyes,
the newborn. So there's new alien creatures in this, and I know everyone just assumes that the creatures in this one are disappointing, right? That's right. Kind of everyone's like, if you haven't seen this movie, you've only heard about it. You know, the Queen in Aliens was magnificent, and like every alien movie needs a new variation of what's happening, right? And the Queen in this one is basically just immobile. She's basically just giving birth. But I actually really, really liked her design. Yeah, I thought she was scary in her own right, not scary in like she would come after you, just scary that could happen to anything.
Yeah,
ever.
It was disturbing.
Because what a horrible way to like live and like whatever. And then when the newborn pops out, it's got these weird human eyes.
Yeah,
like half human eyes.
It's got Sigourney's eyes.
Yeah, it's scary as shit, dude. It's really hard to look at. And then like when it's dying, she's literally saying, "I'm sorry" to it. Mm-hmm. Right, which is, and then the way it dies is not instant. Like,
well, here's
right.
So I didn't want to lose track of thinking of how we prefer this performance over the Hollywood.
Okay. Yes.
But that scene was because of it. One, I thought it was pretty sad, and I was like, "Ugh, this thing's ugly," but like I still feel sad for it. But the way it reminded me of Batman Returns was the same emotional feeling I had when the penguin died, and all the penguins come out and they put them into the water. That
totally. Because
you're like, oh, they're both kind of ugly, but like when they're both going out, like you feel kind of sad for it because
exactly right.
They're just like these weird creatures that didn't ask for it.
Right, totally.
And they still have to get like kind of like a shitty death.
Yeah, totally.
And I thought it was really moving.
I think you're right. And I'm so glad you said that because I didn't even make that connection, but that's exactly right. Like it's emotional. It's kind of thrilling. It kind of plays like a video game in parts. It's just, this movie is just much better than its reputation.
And I loved Ripley in this one.
Let's dig in.
I love Ripley technically Ripley, her not giving a shit.
Yeah, her comedic timing was amazing. Mm-hmm. I thought, right? Like you had mentioned that line about
people said, "Oh, I heard you're dead." She said, "I've been getting that a lot lately." Yeah, that was great,
which is amazing. And her lines, her delivery of the comic lines was really good. Her non-speaking, just watching her try to like figure things out and develop things. I don't know if you caught it, but there's this amazing moment in the beginning where they're interrogating her or something. I can't remember if they're interrogating her or teaching her, but it's way in the beginning of the movie. It's in when she's still kind of like mentally young. And she breaks free of her handcuffs and starts strangling the main bad scientist. And a guard comes in from the blind side and clocks her and hits her in the head with like the butt of a gun or something and knocks her down. And she goes through, her facial expressions are, she snarls, she grabs him, she's angry. Then she looks curious, like, oh, this is what it's like to strangle people. And then she's got this really creepy, enjoying the smile right before she gets clocked. And it's really fast. Wow, she flashes like this little quick, like, man, killing people's fun smile. And then she gets clocked. But just in that transition of anger, calm, watching from afar while I kill someone and then starting to enjoy it and be able to pack that process in like a 5-second.
That's wild. I need to go back.
I mean,
and watch
she's
that.
so pro. That's just like, an amazing way to do that with that character.
And like, how many times like can you put her through that situation without like you having to like call a different play?
Right.
So
right.
I thought doing it that way, like the I don't give a fuck, like and her having the acid blood, I thought was really cool.
Great. Absolutely great.
Because that's the one thing about Alien that I always think of is like when that blood like pours through, like what's stopping it? Like it's just gonna keep eating through shit.
Totally.
So I really liked that. And then I think if I had to pick my second favorite, Ron Perlman. I love him in that.
Okay, so let's dig into
Dourif,
we got to go
rest of
through the
cast,
other characters.
yeah.
So let's do them in blocks. All right.
Okay.
So let's do scientists first. Okay. So Brad Dourif, and I should look up the other guy because he's actually my MVP of the movie, so I want to have his name. But to talk about Brad Dourif for a minute.
I always like watching him. In fact, I know a lot of people. I mean, he is like the voice of Chucky, even though I really dug the new one with Mark Hamill. Like,
and the scariest thing in fucking forever in Exorcist 3.
I think.
Sorry, Alien Resurrection 97.
97.
Okay, go ahead.
I've never been like a huge fan of the Child's Play series, and so like I just feel like whenever people mention Brad Dourif, first thing that comes up is Chucky, obviously, but like he's done a lot of fucking amazing things
He really
that
has.
I don't think people really.
He's
talk
actually
about.
really good in Zombies Halloween too. Like,
The sheriff.
yeah, he's just really good.
He's just an all-around, really, really solid actor. The general,
General Dan Hedaya. Yep.
is that
General Martin Perez.
the dude from Addams Family?
Yep.
I love that guy. I was telling George before we started recording this. He's also the dad to Will Ferrell and Chris Kattan at Night at the Roxbury, and he is hilarious. He's got this like pissed off cadence to his voice, like
Totally.
or like annoyed, highly
It's like
annoyed.
a funny version of the Full Metal Jacket drill sergeant.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Exactly.
And then J.E. Freeman plays Dr. Wren. Now, Dr. Wren is my MVP. If he wasn't in this movie, I think I would rank it lower. And I know, like...
He was the main bad, right?
He was the main bad. And
Yeah.
I'm telling you, man, his delivery of stuff was so amazing that... And I told you this, like, this was my literally favorite moment in the entire movie, and it was all cadence, right? It was when the crew captures him and they're trying to force him to tell them what's going on, and they've got him against the wall, they've got guns on him, they've got him outnumbered, they've got him under threat. Ron Perlman's huge, and he's got his forearm in his neck, and he's pushing him against the wall, and he's like, tell us how many of them are, tell us how many of them are. And he's just looking at him with this like little, very, really tiny smirk, and they keep beating him up, like, tell us how many of you are. And the funny thing is they're assuming that the military is going to keep it secret like they always do in the Alien things, right? That you have to force this answer out of them. But I don't even think they needed to force him. I think they were so busy yelling at him, he didn't even get a chance to answer. He was just waiting for them to shut the hell up so he could get a word in edgewise, because as soon as they paused, they're like, tell us who it is, tell us who it is. And they stop, and he goes, 12. There's 12 of them. There's 12 of these motherfuckers running around the ship. And his confidence with which he goes, 12 is like, you're all gonna die. It was literally saying it was the you're all gonna die trope for a horror movie, but it was translated into a number.
Right.
The number 12.
He was fantastic. And like what's great was I kind of like that he was a little overbaked. Like all the cheesiness that I think people knock the film for, like for some reason, and maybe I watch it again and it doesn't click, but it clicked when I watched it this first time.
I mean, even Sigourney Weaver had really corny lines that she couldn't pull off. The "Who do I have to fuck to get off this boat" was dumb, right? Like they all had corny shit that they had to say, because Joss Whedon's fun script was getting turned into a scary script. So, like, obviously the tone was off in a lot of places, right? So, like, the line could have been funny, but in the context in which it was filmed, it came off as kind of, like, corny or weird. So all of them had that, and Ren had that too. But, like, he also had these glorious moments where he would just, like, he asked Winona Ryder or something for a weapon when they're trying to get through a door, and she hands it to him, and he doesn't even wait. He literally has it in his hand, but doesn't even have it pointed at her yet. And he's like, "You're too trusting," and then shoots her.
Yeah.
just a sudden, like, he just had so much fun being evil.
Yeah, and there was something weird about, like, because there was like some like religious stuff going on there, like with them pulling out the Bible and the one girl putting in there. And then I also think something that is connected to that with him referring to the ship as father.
Yep.
And like there was something weird about that. He's like, "Father, open up the door." It was
Totally.
like there was just this weird sliminess to him.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there was this intensity. And here's the thing: in alien movies, in all the alien movies, as far as I'm concerned, the thing that no one talks about is you have to convince us. Well, maybe not the first one so much, but yeah, I mean, basically, but you have to convince us that the military and the government and the military industrial complex would actually do this, would actually like breed acid-blooded creatures for whatever evil purposes they think they're going to achieve with these things, right? And obviously in the timeline, Wayland himself is trying, it turns out, is trying to do it for something different. But most of the time you think they're just basically trying to weaponize nature, right? Mm-hmm. And it's just ridiculous. Dude, you have spaceships and like rockets and lasers and all that shit. Like, get the fuck out of here. Like, right, yeah, you don't need to strap like... You don't need a bunch of aliens on a battlefield or whatever. Like it never makes sense, right?
And the alien died from a gunshot to the head. It's like, well, what would you do with an army?
Right, exactly. But and you can't, obviously, as Sigourney Weaver tells them earlier, when Ren turns to her and goes, "They're going to be so amazing when we have them trained," and she's like, "What? Sit, roll over, fetch," and he's like, "Yeah." And she's like, "You're all gonna die," right? But
you're idiots.
But his confident, like, yeah, like, whatever. But I think the most sinister line in the entire film comes from him. It's literally I think the best delivered line in the film, not by Sigourney Weaver, which is part of why he's my MVP. But there's this amazingly glorious moment in this movie where they're having that conversation and she goes, "Fetch, roll over," and he goes, "Yeah," and she goes, "You can't just teach it tricks." And he literally stares her down and is like, "Why not? We're teaching you." Mm-hmm. And it's that concept of that hubris, that Frankenstein, like, I control nature, I'm God, I can do whatever I want. Like, he sells it so well that it was the alien movie where I didn't have to think about why they were doing it, because they're obviously doing it because they're insane. Mm-hmm. They're not doing it because it makes sense as a military project. They're doing it because they're sadists and they're nuts. And he got it right. Like, that's right. He acted it the right tone. Like, that's what it is.
Which is weird because he's also, like, kind of wrong, because all that shit was, like, encoded in Ripley. Totally. And it was coming back to over time. So the aliens were just always going to go back to, I'm going to hurt something.
Right. Well, they're also, yeah, they're also not that bright, but, like, you need that. It's Evil Genius is a James Bond film. If the villain, if the military side is evil geniuses, then it becomes no fun because you got no chance against aliens and evil geniuses.
Right.
It's got to be dumb scientists and aliens. Or
what'd you think of the main rebellion crew? So you got the dude in the wheelchair.
Yeah. So all that. I thought all of them were great. All of them, to me, like, they all serve their purpose in terms of what the movie was trying to do. And that's the thing, is like the least memorable crew member had the best death. So like the other female in the crew that gets killed in the water sequence, gets pulled back when they're trying to swim away from the alien. Her dying scream and facial reaction are just heartbreaking. And the music build up, all of that scene was a really good death. It was pretty affecting. The CGI doesn't hold up so great in the water scenes, but I think there's still great sequences. I think it
doesn't look bad. I mean, obviously, like there's a handful of shots where you're like, that's some painful looking CGI, but like, you kind of don't give a shit because like, the movie's so fun.
Well, because it's a mix of CGI and practical, and there are practical shots in that sequence, and those look great. So, like, it's just where you can tell is where it's bad. But I think it's still scary. I love that they set a trap. The aliens had planned to steer them into the place where all the facehuggers were, right? Like, the aliens are scheming. So let's talk about the creatures. It's a fucking monster movie. So let's talk about the creatures for a second. I love the design of all of the creatures, right? Which is par for the course, because the xenomorphs always look good. But I love that their escape plan was to kill one of their own and drizzle his blood on the floor, or like splash his blood on the floor to escape, like the Brad Dourif, experiment.
Where he was like freezing, like hitting with the.
Yep. I love that they use the blood as a weapon, which Sigourney Weaver does later too. So they're all figuring out how to sort of do that.
Right.
But that great moment where the two of them turn on the one, and you can just see it in their eyes. They're like, "You're our way out," and he's like, "I am not your way out."
I am not. No.
But it reminded me of a nature documentary, kind of.
They were going to do what they needed to do.
Totally.
It was either that or Brad Dourif keeps slapping the easy button on him.
That was terrible.
And then they're pissed.
Yep.
No, the aliens were. I mean, the xenomorphs always look great. The queen and the capacity that she was in was different.
And the first reveal of the queen, where you see that big bridge behind her head, and like whatever, because it's the guy you like, Dan Hedaya, who was walking up. He actually has a really chilling line when he's talking about, I want Ripley killed, like whatever, and they're like, no, we're learning things from her. And he's like, all right, if she looks at me the wrong way once, I'm putting her down. Mm-hmm. He's like, I consider her a meat byproduct. Which is a sinister like way to think about things. But as he's saying it, he spots the queen that they have in behind glass, and he goes, not like the real prize, her. Like you can just tell, like that's the priority. Like this one's gonna birth a new alien army for us. Like like it's just played so well.
It was great, and then the one weird hybrid alien at the end was great. Kind of like gave you kind of like walked around like Frankenstein a little bit.
Yep.
Like the misunderstood monster.
Totally.
I thought that was great.
It killed the queen.
Well, yeah, it ripped its jaw.
Right.
Clean off.
Well, it knew how to kill it. Like, instinctively, it knew.
No, they all looked great, and I really liked. Who's the guy? The one military guy that ends up joining the crew, with the short black hair. He was in the first season of Breaking Bad. He was like that season's main bad guy. Oh, I don't remember. And he's just like this like super crazy hyper energy dude. And
which one was he? He was
the dude who said "fuck you" to the military guy. Ended up joining the crew.
Yep.
At the end. I thought he was great.
He was a great dude.
The dude with the because you were saying the review you watched, the guy, he hated the guy with the ricochet bullets, and I thought that was so awesome.
I thought the actor was great, and I thought the ricochet bullet thing was fine for what this movie is. Like it's
What did you think about them killing off their leader, like 35 minutes in?
I mean, I thought it was. That's the thing is, I thought the movie kind of like kept you on your toes enough. Like it got so much right, even though. So let me give you some objections that I had seen from why people hate this movie. Right. So the main thing is it's not scary, which I can sort of agree with. It's not as scary as I don't consider Aliens scary, frankly, but it's not nearly as scary as the original. That's for sure.
Yeah.
I actually think the scary sequences in Prometheus are scarier than anything in this movie.
There are some,
like the scene where the diseased guy is trying to get back in the ship and Charlize Theron's trying to stop him. Like that whole sequence is scarier than anything that happens in Alien Covenant. But it's not scary, but I don't think that particularly matters, considering that I don't think Aliens or Alien 3 or really Alien Covenant are scary either. So I don't think I mean it turns out that the first movie set a bar that really was going to be really hard to match anyway. Yeah. But which is how it should be, because that's a masterpiece. But that was the objection. One thing I saw that I thought was interesting was they didn't like the aliens being imprisoned, experimented on, and behind glass because it made them less scary. Which I can see, but I think misses the entire point of the franchise, because the entire point of the franchise to me is that the aliens aren't the scariest thing in the franchise. We are, right? Like the aliens are obviously scary, but like what humans are doing, or even other species, races, or whatever you want to call them, what people are doing to try to use these things as pawns to just wreak absolute havoc and murder is like Brad Dourif torturing the aliens. To me, it had a really Planet of the Apes feel to it. And if I'm trading like scary monsters for monsters that are a little bit more empathetic, like, but it's the fourth movie in the franchise, I'm okay with it. Like also, we should learn more about them by the time we're on movie 4.
Yeah, other than that. But back to like them being, in prison makes them less scary is horseshit. Those things are scary. In prison, out of prison.
Well, I agree.
There's no place they are where they're not fucking freaky.
Yeah, I totally agree.
It's an alien, dude.
That's
I'm not buying that one bit.
That's very true. So that was another complaint. And then
the special effects throughout the whole movie. The spaceships, all this other stuff.
So they did the spaceships practical, and I thought because they had the care to do that came out great.
Yeah, like it felt like super high quality sci-fi.
Right.
Aside from like the few weird CGI stuff, like the like the aliens walking and the ones underwater, and like I think there's a couple explosions that looked kind of weird.
Yep.
Other than that, like everything looked pretty fun and awesome.
Yeah, and I mean, this movie's from '97, and the fact that we still think it looks pretty good when that is an era notorious for movies that just didn't
They start
age
getting
well.
bad, yeah.
Like, I don't know, man. Maybe we're just nuts, but I feel like this movie is really fun. I think
so too.
Emotional enough. I think it's got good performances. I think Sigourney Weaver turns in one of the most interesting later era character performances in a horror franchise history.
Yeah.
Like I know she's a little quippy here, but like she's doing some interesting stuff of where she's scary, where she's confident, where she's
Right.
like you said, where she doesn't give a fuck, but also where you get flashes of the old Ripley where surviving is just like the main priority, right? So like she's got those layers but then she's got these really interesting twists where for the first time in the history of her character, you feel like she's kind of watching everything from almost like above or a distance.
Yes.
Which is a interesting development for the character, right? So I thought she played it really, really well. And I don't know. I don't know, man. I feel like if this movie comes on and I'm flipping through channels and it comes on a Sci-Fi or like whatever comes on or HBO, I'm just gonna keep watching it because it's really fun.
That's how I felt. I just felt like this movie is so fun that like the fact that it's 57, 57. It's got.
I'll do the neighborhood thing while you wrap up.
It's got to be higher than that. I mean, the biggest thing I noticed is like some of these films we watch. Like I'll watch them, but like I'm kind of half invested. Like,
sure,
it's not really grabbing me. But there wasn't really a boring moment in this whole movie.
Yeah, it doesn't lag. And I think that's the thing is I think my final argument for this is going to be. I can't find it. It doesn't matter. But my final argument for this is going to be the things that I think it bothered people a lot about it, about its weirdness and its jaggedness and how it was like whatever. I think kind of ended up working to its advantage somehow a little bit because if they had just made Joss Whedon's Cabin in the Woods version of Alien 4, I don't feel like I would have enjoyed it as much because I feel like it wouldn't have had that gothic Batman Returns feel.
Right.
It wouldn't have been scary and it would have just been funny. And then what is that? Like what is a What We Do in the Shadows version of Alien? Like I don't feel like that makes sense, right? So like I'm glad the director sort of steered it back but I'm glad they got some of Joss Whedon's like quick humor in it. So I don't know, man.
They made an accidental Last Jedi.
That's the thing is I think that a whole bunch of people trying to do their job as best they could accidentally made something that was pretty damn good and that it was not received well by the public or fans for a lot of predictable reasons, which is when you start a movie franchise with a movie that's one of the scariest movies ever made, pretty much anything else that doesn't give you some kind of really, really high watermark thing isn't going to feel like a thing, right? Like if you were on the Titanic and you survived and you swam, you got in a lifeboat and they rescued you and you, whatever. The next time you get on a ship, when you just get to port, you're going to feel relieved because you don't want to go through that again. But it's also way more boring than your last journey, right? Like nothing is going to live up to what they'll ever. Like you can't make a movie as scary as Alien, probably. Like in the same franchise, you'd have to have a new concept, right? Yeah. Nobody's done it. Ridley Scott hasn't done it. Nobody's done it. James Cameron didn't do it.
2 other times.
Right. So, like I think they were against. So the budget was large, so no one was expecting corny, fun cheese. Right?
Yeah.
And so I think they went after for that. I think a lot of people take easy shots at like Winona Ryder and for being a bad actress. I've been hearing it about my whole life, and every time I watch her, I think she's great.
I didn't bump it at all.
Right. So like I've been hearing that like she was terrible in Bram Stoker's Dracula. She's terrible, but she just keeps pulling.
She's always been great. She was great in Edward Scissorhands. She was great in that. She was wonderful in Stranger Things.
Yes. So that's the thing is I think it's an accidental. Really, I wouldn't say near masterpiece, but an accidental, really, really good movie. But here's the thing. Let's be honest. As horror fans, as people who love this genre, we are stuck more than most people with franchises for good and for bad. A lot
Yeah.
of times that's glorious. A lot of times it's Puppet Master. So when you're looking at this, right? Like when I go back and I look at a movie that I feel like is a movie that I could have lived, 10 more lifetimes and never watched again if we hadn't done this podcast, or if I hadn't thought about it, like why would I rewatch Alien Resurrection or like whatever. Like when I can go back and it grows in sort of value and becomes a more fun, more thing that I'm looking forward to, and it's sitting inside a legendary franchise, like we don't get that opportunity a lot. Most of the times franchises just degenerate and keep going down.
Yeah.
Right. So the fact that Alien 3 was palpably bad for a lot of reasons that really aren't David Fincher's fault, and the fact that the franchise came back with Alien Resurrection, and even though it looked like a failure from the outside, I think it's provably better than Alien 3. I think it's great. I'm glad it's there.
I am glad that there was a fun movie for How Low Can We Go?
Agreed. How would you rate it? Where do you think it really lives in Rotten Tomatoes?
87%.
Whoa, that's pretty high. You really liked it.
Dude, I really liked this movie.
That's pretty high.
And I've only started the marinating process, so who knows how much higher it might go to this.
Hold on, I got to just check one thing. I got to know what Alien Covenant is, because I feel like that's my benchmark, is that it's...
All right, so Alien Covenant is the...
So I feel like Alien Covenant is my benchmark for my rating.
Okay.
So Alien Covenant is 66% on
Okay.
Rotten Tomatoes. So that makes this movie automatically 72% to me.
72%?
This is a 72% movie. This movie is at least 5 or 6 percentage points better than Alien Covenant.
I buy that.
Yeah. So
I buy that.
So let us know what you think of Alien Resurrection. Give us suggestions for further down. How low can we go? We're heading into the mid 50s. If you're Googling,
There's still a lot of good, juicy options to pick at this phase. A lot of good ones.
there are a lot of good juicy options, and then Alien Resurrection. Obviously, we recommend it if you haven't seen it.
You gotta watch it. It's on
Yeah,
HBO.
and let us know what you think. And I'm
with the
we're having
car.
technical
We're having
difficulties.
technical difficulties. They had better technology on that piece of shit ship they were on in Alien Resurrection.
That, by the way, that was a flaw of this movie. The ship had very little personality compared to the ships on the other.
There was no Nostromo or whatever it was.
Yeah,
in
no
the
Nostromo.
Nostromo, yeah.
Okay.
Let us know what you think before the card dies. Let us know what you think. Give us recommendations. Give us a review. We'll talk to you guys later. Watch a bunch of horror movies. Stay scary. Bye, guys. Bye.